Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a moment of silent prayer and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The affidavit of posting, this is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a quorum today. Mr. McCune is excused. Has everybody checked? Sorry. Hear me now?
Yes.
We have a quorum. Mr. McCune is excused. Everyone punched in? Supervisor Gillett? Supervisor Sarcy? Thank you. This is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of the county clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI newspapers, Express News, Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, and WGKM Radio. The above actions in conformity with the state of Wisconsin open meeting law. First order of business would be consent agenda. I'll accept a motion to accept. Supervisor Smisek.
Well done.
All right, finally got it right. Supervisor Kist, second. Any changes, deletions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, begin with personal appearances, Wisconsin 911 Memorial Committee presentation.
Good evening. It is indeed a pleasure to be in front of this board. I'm here tonight to talk about a 9/11 memorial that's going into the village of Kewaskum. I am the president of Kewaskum Remembers 9/11 Incorporated. And what started as it was a long journey for my family. On September 11th, 2001, my daughter Andrea unfortunately was in the North Tower on the 92nd floor. And she, like 2,976 other people, died that day. So our family's journey started that day, but the journey of this memorial actually began in a meeting my wife and I had with the 9/11 Memorial Museum people in New York City. They had recovered artifacts, or Andrea's personal possessions, from the Trade Center. And
Can you just hold on to the mic?
there we go.
See,
I
right
think.
up to your chin.
Hello.
Is that better?
They had recovered Andrea's personal items from the Trade Center, and we were with a meeting with the museum people. We had her purse and her personal effects, and we decided to donate those to the museum itself.
Let me just see. Sorry. They keep telling me it's on. Nope, it doesn't have it.
Maybe I should just talk louder. How's that? So during that meeting, we turned over her personal items to the museum for care in the future and for display at the museum out in New York City. It was brought to our attention at that meeting that artifacts remaining from the Trade Center were going to begin to be let out for memorials and museums across the country. And we took a day and toured the hangar at JFK Airport in New York, where all the remaining, the wrecked detritus of the Trade Center was located. Subway cars, police cars, beams. They had held back about 2,200 items for their museum and for memorials across the country. It was a very somber place, very powerful place. The remainder of the Trade Center steel, which was about 1,800,000 pounds, or tons, was ordered to be destroyed, to be made non-recognizable as World Trade Center steel. They did not want to have a beam such as this end up in the Middle East or be marketed. And so both federally and statewide, the remainder of the trade centers had to be destroyed. So coming back to Wisconsin here, met with two teachers from the Kewaskum High School and brought this up to them. That started a process with Matt Heiser, the village administrator, and the teachers, one of which is here, Jerry Gosa, to make an application to the Port Authority of New York for one of these pieces of steel. That was awarded to Kewaskum in 2012, late 2012. It was a long process. There's a few things you can do with this steel. Has to be in a memorial to the victims and servicemen afterwards of 9/11. You cannot charge for anyone to view it, and it has to be in public view. And so the process started, what do we do with this piece of steel? And over the years, we have, with the help of Flagstone Landscaping in Cedarburg, and a Kewaskum graduate who's here tonight, who's an architect, Dustin Melzark, have developed what we feel to be an incredible tribute to the events that happened on 9/11. But past that, a tribute to our servicemen. Over 200 have died in the conflict since 9/11 in the service to our country. That does not include suicides as a result of their service. It honors our firemen, our first responders, police officers, EMTs. They also just went to work that morning. And in exchange, 343 of them, firemen, gave their lives. 77 police officers were killed that morning. 3 FBI agents were killed, a Secret Service member, all trying to save people coming out of those towers. Our goal is to honor, respect, and educate people for generations to come of an event that, well, all of us in this room have a conscious memory of. Young people coming up do not. The memorial will also honor the volunteers who worked at Ground Zero for 9 months. Few people know that they are dying at alarming rates from working in that toxic pit. In the last 3 months alone, 40 have succumbed to cancers. I personally know several. 2 are in the hospital now. I'm not sure if they'll make it through January. But you talk to these people, as my wife and I have, and get together with them. None of them would exchange the job that they volunteered for their current situation. And they worked those 9 months to recover what was left of 29, almost 3,000 people. And it wasn't much, I can tell you that. So in development of the memorial, the purpose is going forward to educate. We've provided design-wise an area where students from schools can gather, and a military area to observe and respect and remember. And the village has just been tremendous with us. The property is right, there's adequate parking. It'll become a destination spot in Washington County and in the state of Wisconsin.
Corey, do you want the video to play?
We have a short video. It's a rendition of what the memorial will look like. That's going north on Highway 45. That's the military area there. Yeah. That's the beam piece of steel. It's approximately 6 feet long, about 3 feet tall, weighs 1 ton. It was a support beam part of a support beam from the North Tower. Behind the education center there is a wall, and on that wall will be inscribed the names of all 2,977 victims. Those tridents under the podium, if you remember images from the Trade Center, those lower floors were supported by these massive beams that formed tridents that actually formed the support network for the higher floors. We intend to have those to scale underneath the podium. And we believe this will stand for generations to come as a place to gather to remember a date in this country's history, which literally, whether young people know it or not, changed their future, all of our futures. I'm here with the board member of ours, Mr. Andrew Johnson, and his story is equally as tragic as our story.
Well, I have a different story. I joined this team about 2 years ago. I'm the publisher of the Kewaskum Statesman. I bought that 3.5 years ago.
My son, Lieutenant David Johnson, was a forward operating base commander in Afghanistan. He was killed in action in a battle he was leading on January 25th, 2012. And Gordon and I got together. Unfortunately, we have a lot in common. And he asked me to join this effort. I have been working on the Gold Star Memorial Trail that is opening, and we just completed the construction of Phase 1. That's in Dodge County. And he liked the way that we had did that, and so he asked me for help. And so because of my story, of course, and my relationship to Kewaskum, of course I would come and help. So what Ethan and I had talked, I don't know, about 8 months ago, a year, and I said, Ethan, I think what this memorial needs is some kind of official designation. We need to be set apart to be special. And he tucked it in the back of his head, and one day I got a call, it was a month ago or something. He said, hey, what would you think about doing this at the county level to start? And I thought it was a great idea. And what we are looking for is a designation of being the official 9/11 memorial in this case for Washington County. And our real intention is to use this as a stepping stone to become the 9/11 memorial for the state of Wisconsin. And I believe, was it 17 have been directly killed from Wisconsin? Is that right, 17?
There are 17 people that had direct ties.
But your daughter,
To
your is the most only child directly.
Yes.
And so there is only one Mr. Haberman in the state of Wisconsin, and I think the memorial should go here. And every year there should be a special service to remember this very big changing event that occurred in 9/11. It changed all of our lives. When you refer to 200 soldiers from Wisconsin have been killed. I know several from this area have also been. And so we're asking for your support for this resolution, that you would support this effort. And I think it would be good for the county. It'd be good for this part of Wisconsin. I think about 80% of Wisconsin lives within 2-hour drive of here. So this is very accessible for the whole state of Wisconsin. We're in an excellent location for this memorial to be. And so tonight, we've told you about it. We have raised about $200,000 so far for this. We have a lot of in-kind donations for the stone and marble, and I believe Michael's donated all the marble. And so we're making some very good progress to actually get this done. But we do need this designation to help us in our effort. And so that's what we're asking for your support tonight. Is there anything else?
No.
Any other questions? We'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing us to come here. We are really grateful.
Just one question. How much funding are you looking for? I mean,
We have it in three phases?
Yes,
3 phases. 4 phases?
Right. It'll be completed in 4 phases. The first 2, actually the first will be the military area in conjunction with the center rotunda. The wall of names, that will come afterwards, and then we have to redo the parking lot going in there. That would be a separate phase. And we're doing that in order to allow for school buses to come there. We would hope that this would be a spot for students, teachers, do a field trip here. Eventual goal would, out in New York, 9/11 is a curriculum item in their schools. The museum out in New York is training young people to be emissaries and go out into the country and speak at schools and at memorials about the impact of 9/11 on all of our society. And, you know, Andrew's loss is it's terrible.
In answer to your question more particularly, we think at about $350,000 we can start construction. And so we've moved along pretty well in the last year, actually.
Yeah.
We moved a lot. And so
The goal is to start this spring.
So we want to move along pretty fast. That's our goal. And then we would build the others as we fund it. And I think as we get this, even part of it built, and we can have, bring people to the area and have that service in 9/11, and have different state dignitaries come. I think we'll get the attention we need, we'll get the state attention we need, and I think the right people will help us finish it up. That's what we believe.
What I was saying before Andrew spoke, 9/11 was just not a singular event. Americans are in harm's way across the world. We've entered almost into a period of endless conflict, in my estimation. And it continues to change lives in America. Whether it's workers dying from cancers, whether it's servicemen in great risk at faraway places, 9/11 directly relates to that, and it will for many years. So it's important as we go forward that information is accurate, that it becomes a spot where people can reflect and observe. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, well then, we'll consider Resolution 66 to support the official designation of Wisconsin 911 Memorial. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Simisek and Supervisor Johnson. Okay, do we need a electronic vote on this, or just? Supervisor Mahalik.
I just wanted to make note, of course, Kewaskum and what they're doing is not the only community that has a 911 memorial. However, seeing the incredible extent of what Kewaskum is doing, because Hartford put one in a couple of years ago. However, the fact that you actually have a portion of the 911, or excuse me, of the towers, and with the sacrifice obviously made by other board members as a veteran and having 4 kids serving in the military currently, I'm very sensitive to that and want to encourage hopefully a unanimous vote on this, that it be designated as the 911 Memorial of Washington County. Thank you.
Any other comments, any questions? Okay, vote on this electronically. It's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much for the vote of confidence. Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening. Thank you, and we'll keep you informed as we move along. Thank you.
We have a resolution for you, so we'll take a quick photo.
Before you go, this is the official resolution in support, and a framed copy for you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all your work.
Step right in here, I'll take your photo. Right in here, Don, right by the,
Right by the,
yep.
Sorry, I have to limp along.
it's okay. Here you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for
Oh,
all your work.
wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you both. Resolution 2018, number 65, commendation of Jeffrey Esselman, Supervisor Donran, Supervisor Schleif. Read that off.
Whereas Jeffrey Esselman has contributed more than 31 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Jeffrey Esselman has chosen to retire from his present position of Patrol Superintendent at the Highway Department, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Jeffrey Esselman for his 31 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to him heartfelt thanks for his many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Jeffrey Esselman as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
We'll do this with a voice vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll stand with our, just double check. Jeffrey's not here. No. Whoops, landed. Forget about that. Okay, all right, resolution, 2018 resolution 67, transfer from the general fund facilities chiller replacement project at UW and Washington County campus. The motion Supervisor Mahalik, Supervisor Bertrand. Any questions or comments? We'll vote on this electronically.
There's a chills to spend that kind of. I pressed it.
Resolution passes. Moving on to 2018 Resolution 68, amend the 2018-2022 capital improvement plan, county highway projects, county trunk W and county trunk S. If there's no objection, I'd like to have Supervisor Krebs introduce one of his constituents to speak on this, on the residents in that area's behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to have someone from the community act as a spokesperson for this project. At this time, I would like to introduce Elaine Gehring to speak and address to the board.
Thank you, Supervisor Krebs. My name is Elaine Gehring, and my address is 5003 Highway 175, Hartford. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening on behalf of many of your constituents. We recognize and appreciate the amount of time and effort that all of you have already invested in this topic, and we hope you will be willing to consider the concerns that we've raised in regard to the Highway W resolution, or the Highway W extension within this resolution. We believe that the Highway W extension is unnecessary because there are already two parallel roads within a half mile of each direction that connect Highways 83 and 175. Highway S to the north and Highway K to the south, 1/2 mile in each direction. There's actually a large project ongoing already begun on Highway K to improve that as a connector. As you know, the $2.1 million estimate for this half-mile road is a very preliminary figure because it's from the 30% engineering study, which is very general and provides very little detail or focus. We believe that the final cost for the Highway W project will far exceed the $2.1 million estimate. It's interesting to note that an earlier estimate for this very same project by Washington County for the same road, their estimate was $4.75 million, more than double the $2.1 million estimate that we're talking about tonight. At a time when the county is routinely seeking new ways to seek revenue, new sources of revenue, you're all familiar with these. The park fees, talking about selling the golf course, talking about mining gravel within a county park, the possible sale of county park lands. With all of that ongoing, we believe that it is really an unnecessary and very wasteful use of taxpayer money to consider this Highway W extension at this time. It's noted on the resolution that there is a zero net financial impact on the capital improvement plan as a result of this resolution. It's interesting that the intergovernmental revenue funding for this is part of the $5 million payment from the DOT for the jurisdictional transfer of Highway 83. Money that the state estimated would be the cost of repair and maintenance and improvement work on Highway 83 for the next 10 to 15 years. We question using these funds for this new construction of Highway W. This was not previously in any plan, and we believe that one way or the other, Washington County taxpayers will be bearing the burden not only for the final cost of the current project under discussion, but also for future costs that will be involved in Highway 83 maintenance and repair in the years to come. We've been told that the Highway W extension would improve mobility from Hartford to and from West Bend. But the existing Highway W intersects Highway 33 in Allenton very close to the existing railroad tracks. 2 trains per hour during the workday travel through that train track area. There is already often a significant amount of congestion and backup of travel, or backup of vehicles, I should say, on both Highway 33 and Highway W. We don't understand why the county would encourage additional traffic with the Highway W extension into an existing problem area in Allenton for which there is no foreseeable remedy. The railroad tracks are there. It's interesting to note that the Highway W extension was initially proposed when the county plan was to eliminate the intersection at Highway S and Highway 175. The original plan was to create cul-de-sacs so that there would be no crossing over on Highway S and there would be no access from Highway S onto 175. However, the current proposal improves that intersection. It doesn't close it. And so we believe this negates the need for the Highway W extension as it was originally proposed. We believe that the proposed upgrades to the Highway S intersections would effectively deal with any safety concerns. However, if the Highway S intersection project remains bundled with the Highway W extension in this resolution, we urge you to vote no. In regard to safety concerns, we believe that there are new safety issues that are raised with the Highway W extension because of the addition of 2 new intersections as well as the slow-moving farm vehicles that will travel on a long, slow curve on the new extended area, even with a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. In addition to the new safety issues that will be resulting in Allenton with the additional traffic moving to that intersection along with the railroad tracks. Lastly, and probably first on some people's lists, would be that we object because valuable farmland will be eliminated and crop productivity will be significantly decreased as a result of the Highway W extension project. We were told that the Highway W extension would improve safety and increase mobility. We believe that the proposed project and resolution fail on both counts. In closing, we believe that all of these issues of concern, the lack of necessity for this new road, the fiscal issues related to the high cost of this project, the new safety concerns that are created, and finally the loss of valuable farmland. We believe that all of these create good cause for us as Washington County taxpayers and as your constituents to strongly urge you to vote no on this resolution. We thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. I'm also going to need a motion to consider the resolution 68. Motion by Supervisor Gallo, second by Supervisor Kelley. We'll begin with Scott Schmidt.
Sure. Is this in their packet here somewhere? Packet on here? I can find it if you want. Sure. So I'll start without the mic, then I'll jump onto the mic as soon as it's available. Josh is going to bring up the packet here for you as well. What I was going to go through is go through my presentation that I did for the Public Works Committee earlier this month, I believe it was. No, in December it was. To go through that with that to kind of discuss, maybe I'll hit on a couple of those points as well that were brought up. So where this all started, if you recall, many of the board members were here when we had the reliever route options going from on Highway K. The county went through a long process to look at a reliever route to get truck traffic off of Highway 60 and onto a different route. That was defeated by the county board. So Josh and I sat down in his office and looked for a way to get the county out of that reliever route conversation. You'll see that's one of the next items on the agenda. One of the ways to get out of that conversation was to look at getting rid of County Highway K west of State Highway 83. So we looked at that going, okay, if we want to do that, how else can we work all these jurisdictional transfers together? So we started looking at the map going, well, all right,
you know, what else can we do to make these jurisdictional happen? And that kind of grew into this whole big, is that this one?
Were you looking for the map?
Just the whole agenda packet item. So we started looking at this map going, what else can we do in the county to look, and how can we actually work with the various communities to look at happen? So if we're looking at Highway K, going, okay, Addison, Hartford, maybe we take that. What else can we do to improve actual mobility and efficiency around the county? So we started looking at the map going, well, there's some other problem areas up in that area, being familiar with that area. There's some accidents up by S and 83. How can we look at addressing those? We looked at the map going, well, look, it makes sense to have a draw a line from the W extension of 175 and get it over to 83 to help mobility. Well, if we do that, we're going to have to include the state of Wisconsin. We want to solve the city of Hartford's issue with taking on 83. How can we get that into there too, of the trucks on Main Street? You know, the state was willing to give up Highway 83. Well, we don't want to take over 3 miles of 83 and only give up a mile and a third of K. What else can we do? So we started looking around the county. Josh being the ex-administrator from Richfield, we looked at, well, Pioneer Road. We want to have a lot of accidents on 41. We can have another bypass route to get those vehicles off of 41 in that area. So we said, well, let's include Pioneer Road down there. We can maybe take that and get rid of our FD by Cabela's, go to Pioneer Road in Richfield. So we said, well, Richfield just not gonna that. What else can we do? Then we put in CC. So this whole ball started rolling downhill pretty quickly. And we brought that to Public Works Committee, and they said, yep, that looks like a pretty good idea. So that extension that was talked about earlier was on the maps that we had originally from day one, that extension up here in this area that Josh is pointing out to. Even at the public meeting that we had back in February 17, where we had the cul-de-sacs, the extension was on the maps that we brought that day to that public. So that has been on the maps from day one. In the jurisdictional transfers, that extension was on there with the knowledge that that might be constructed. At first, we put on there that it would be paid for by the state of Wisconsin, that extension. We negotiated with the state of Wisconsin. They didn't want to do it as a state project. Thought, well, we can do projects a little more cheap, a little more inexpensive at the county level. If they provide funds, that's one thing we could probably use those funds for. So that's kind of giving you the history of how this kind of came about. It started off, well, let's go leave her out, let's get rid of that stretch of Highway K, and possibly, well, we didn't solve the city's issue down there, relieving truck traffic on Main Street. Maybe we can solve that. So we're looking at all this stuff. So all in total, you know, the county is down in mileage, when this is all said and done. It also must be pointed out that the town of Hartford stepped up and we started these jurisdictional transfers to really get out of the River route. Is from Clover Road down to Wilson, down that area. That stretch roadway will be taken over by the town of Hartford. So to further get us out of that relief route discussion in the future, we now have the K is gone, 83 south of Clover Road is gone, so a county highway or a state highway does not now connect to the city of Hartford on the north side. So that's really what we kind of looked at. We kind of put this all in together as one big package. We negotiated with the DOT to see what kind of price we could get and what we could utilize those funds for. I must point out, when the DOT gave us those funds, there are no strings attached. It was not just for the maintenance of 83. Some people certainly believe that, but that is not the case. Part of that money was to go to reconstruct FD. We'll see in my committee report once we get to that point. So it was never meant just solely for 83 and the maintenance on 83. It was part of a larger, bigger picture in the county is why that money was provided to us. And I think Josh and I did a really good job getting those funds from the state of Wisconsin.
So, to Scott's point, I'm just gonna go back to the last slide and walk you through this. There was essentially 4 components that we were working towards, and it was not as formal as it looks up on the slide that you're seeing now. Scott alluded to the fact that we literally sat in my office after we had been approached by the town board chairman of Hartford initially, and then ultimately the town board chairman from Madison as well, trying to develop a solution to, number one, as you can see, get us out of the really real discussion. This board made it very, very clear over a year ago now that we did not want to have any part of that. That was, I think, the 3rd time in the last 30 years we've said we didn't want to have any part of it. This entire jurisdictional transfer, and now this last component we're a part of, helping us to get out of that discussion from now into the future. The other 2 things that I want to point out, and I will touch on in more detail in just a moment, are we also tried to hit areas that are priorities or our result maps. And in the order of safe and secure community and effective mobility and reliable infrastructure. And I'll hit on those in more detail. And finally, the goal of the entire process, from the beginning of jurisdictional transfer discussion to the very end today in this proposal that you're seeing, and I urge you to consider it as one whole thing, because that was originally the intent, is to do all of this in a way that was fiscally responsible, not adding to the additional fiscal health issues that we've talked about in the past. So Scott touched on this map. This was a second version, a second rendition of the original map. Some of you who were involved from the very beginning might remember that this County Highway W extension actually went straight across from the corner of K and 83 straight across to County Highway W, and there was a lot of consternation about that. This was the second rendition, showing also that the DOT was not going to pay for it. It was something that would be used, the DOT dollars would be used for it. As we were having discussions, one of the very first things we did was call a meeting with the two town chairmen to see if this was something that they were interested in. Because if they weren't interested in doing this and the jurisdictional transfers as a whole, then it wasn't going to be worth the time. Obviously, by now you know you've passed the jurisdictional transfer agreement earlier last year, I guess it is at this point, almost a year ago. Well, as part of those original discussions, you'll recall it was very contentious when we went through the reliever out discussion. There was probably about 5 times as many people at the county board meeting than there are today, raising very similar concerns for very good reasons. And I would like to say that at that first meeting with the two town chairmen and a few other people, one of the very first things that they said after we kind of went through the entirety of what we were discussing and showed a map very similar to this, was they liked what they saw. As a matter of fact, one of the quotes was, "I'm trying to find something I don't like about it." And that's kind of been the theme as we've gone throughout. So as we went through this process, for a variety of reasons, we decided to separate the resolutions. There was some discussion about it at basically every stage of the discussion. With regard to the rest of the jurisdictional transfer agreement that you have already approved, and then this component. We tried not to replicate the mistake that we made as we went through the reliever out discussion. Instead, getting that 30% design done, so we have a firm number. Scott will speak to, or can speak to, if you have questions about the accuracy of that number, which we're confident is much more accurate than the original estimate. I think on multiple occasions at the public information meetings that we have had about this project and about the jurisdictional transfer, we heard a lot of concern and consternation about whether or not Scott's estimate was accurate. And our statement in response was, well, if we didn't give you a number now, we get criticized for not doing that, so we're going to hold off and get the 30% number. Now that we've got the 30% number, we're getting criticized for doing that, so I think it's a bit of a lose-lose. So to go into order, I touched already on our intention, number one, to do the reliever out and get that removed. Second in importance is achieving your priority of a safe and secure community. So a snapshot on the left, you'll see the traffic map, the accident map, or a snapshot of a small portion of it. What you're looking at north-south is State Highway 83 with the multitude of dots, both red, green, and yellow. Obviously, east and west there, it's marked as County Highway K, and the line kind of diagonally crossing is Highway 175. And what you notice here is a multitude of accidents in multiple locations, but especially up in that triangular area, County Highway S and 175, 175 and 83, County Highway S and 83 as well. And so we tried to really hit on this definition of safe and secure community. Ensures a safe public transportation network that is well maintained, accessible, and enhances safe traffic flow and mobility. I want to point out that even with the proposed improvements here on County Highway S, the current north-south route, as it is a fatality waiting to happen. Why do I say that? You look at the size of some of these circles, that indicates higher frequency of accidents. Essentially what's happening in terms of traffic flow, if you zoom out and you look at the entire area, which you can't even do on this map, as Ms. Gary alluded to, County Highway W goes all the way up to State Highway 33. This is a frequently used route. Some of you I know use this route quite often as it is. Traffic follows County Highway W out of Allenton and comes straight down in this direction to Deer Road, where Deer Road intersects with S. Vehicles then head westbound on S, and they make two more stops, one at 175 and one at State Highway 83, and then they head south. In essence, they're making vehicle movements at 3 intersections here. So what we're proposing is to go from all of that traffic primarily using that route to get from the north to the south, instead going from the north, stopping at 1 intersection and going straight through. I think it's inarguable to say that 1 heavily used intersection is certainly safer than 3. And that was a part of the reasoning and the logic that went behind us trying to achieve the safe and secure community. As far as improving mobility, this particular result map gets hit in a multitude of ways. I'm not going to read each one of them to you. Certainly you're familiar with these. But the gist of it is the map on the left was a map that was created by Rebecca and Associates as part of a planning study that they did for the city of Hartford. And it shows where populations are coming from to work in one of our most populous industrial areas, industrial communities in the county. And what you will see is Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, Ozaukee counties, Kewaskum and West Bend are about 25% of the entire population of the workforce, and that doesn't include the people who live right in Hartford. What that means, the point of that map is a lot of the traffic that is coming to work in the Hartford Industrial Park is coming from the north. And I can tell you a lot of that traffic is using a multitude of routes, and they all zigzag somewhere along Highway 33 or Highway 60 into the north side of the city of Hartford. And so we were trying to, by doing this improvement, make an improvement that improves mobility for what is a number of people, both within the city limits of the city of Hartford, but also commuting on a daily basis. Finally, the fiscal responsibility note. I know this is a major concern for you. We wouldn't make a proposal of a project that we didn't think addressed that, especially learning the lesson that we learned from the reliever route a couple of years ago. Basically, what you're looking at on this slide is a snapshot of analysis that we asked our finance department to do on the totality of the entire jurisdictional transfer plan. So in the short term, what is this doing? In the short term, rather than asking us to do a general fund transfer and come up with property tax levy dollars to pay for this project, we're proposing to do it within the dollar amount that was allocated as part of the State Highway 83 transaction. In the long term, what makes it even better than that is when you shake everything out and you do the net cost analysis, a true cost benefit, the return on investment, if you will, at the end of all of that, the county will save $3 million, even if you spend this $2 million to do the extension study. And so, whether you look at it in the long term of a 25-year life of the road, or you look at it in the short term, in the next few years before this road is built, this is a fiscally responsible project for you to contemplate. With that being said, I want to acknowledge that there are people on both sides of this issue. We have been contacted by a multitude of people. I know you have as well. Both Scott and I, at public information meetings, outside of public information meetings, have been contacted by people on both sides. Some of those emails and phone calls have been from people opposed, some have been for people in favor. And I can tell you that a number of the people who are in favor are flat out just too afraid to say anything publicly. And if you got to the people that are in that situation, I think you'd understand why. So at the end of the day, what we're asking you to consider is whether or not this particular project does the 4 things that we talked about. Does it in fact make that final move to fully remove the reliever route off the table? Does it improve safe and secure community and achieve that priority for you? Does it improve effective mobility and reliable infrastructure? And is it fiscally responsible? Scott has some more information that he's going to go over in terms of some of the details. And as you have questions, please ask, and either one of us can answer them. So- Yep.
So I'm going through the packet of information that was made available to you and go through some of the things that Josh kind of alluded to. One thing I want to point out was the magnitude of roadways in there. I did try to bold this in my report to the Public Works Committee. You know, we will be having a conversation on that County Highway S to 175 and W, potentially jurisdictionally transferring that over to the town of Addison. Also, 83 between S and Highway W extension would also, that's that north-south stretch, but to also potentially jurisdictionally transfer that over to the town of Addison, or potentially vacate that roadway for a driveway for the farmer that lives there. Again, later on that we could do. So this just kind of shows that immediate fiscal effect that Josh alluded to, which is in my report, the $5 million from the state, $34,000 from the village of Richfield, 2.1 for W extension, $450,000 for the intersection of S 175, 1.3 for the Pioneer Road, and you see all the payments that are listed there, as well as possible payments for those extensions that I just talked about, or jurisdictional transfers. So even at today dollars, we'd still be about $210,000 ahead. Why we're ahead in the future? We're 3.5 miles less roadways than we have right now with all the jurisdictional transfers. That's money that I don't have to spend to reconstruct those roads in the future, repave those roads in the future. I don't have to cut grass on those roads. I don't have to plow and maintain those roadways. So that's that long-term fiscal effect that Josh was mentioning earlier too, that we did with kind of long range. What does it cost to maintain a county highway per year, per mile? And kind of extrapolate that out, that I don't have to do that. That long-range plan also includes repaving 83 within that 25-year windows, doing a pulverized relay. You can imagine if I don't have to pulverize relay 3.5 less miles of roadway, you know, if altogether 7 miles I don't have to do altogether, that's a real benefit to the county. Right? You gotta remember that CC itself was 3 miles. The stretch of 83 is 3 miles. You throw in County Highway N, you throw in County Highway K, you throw in FD, that's what makes us ahead in the long run, that we're doing this. So that's where kind of the today's dollars come from, and Josh alluded to the future dollars moving forward. Also, my community report kind of showed you the new intersections and stuff. So I want to go through kind of the history. Washington County Board of Supervisors has a long history of making roadway improvements in the county, as well as the state of Wisconsin. I just picked several of them up here, kind of showing the difference of, looking at the top one is a new intersection versus what was there prior to 1990s. We're not talking 100 years ago. We're talking 1990, look at the mobility that we talked about, coming down, make left-hand turn, and other stuff. This is Highway NN and M, up into Trenton and Jackson town line. So you can see that creating one intersection up at that stretch of the area. The one I think I really want to point out to is this one southeast of Hartford is Pike Lake. Highway K before 1970 came up. Came up, meet Highway E, then went on Oil Spring Road to here, went up back here, and came up that way. So that was the traveled route. You can see, close to 1972, they decided, well, that was no longer efficient coming up here, going over there. They went along the fence line, cut through from farm fields, come up here. You can still take this traveled route today down Oil Spring Roadway, but obviously with the effect of mobility, people don't do that. They can stop, make a left-hand turn, take a sharp corner, make another stop, make a left turn, and go on their merry way. The county board decided back then it was worthwhile to do that. We got a petition from over 300 people who signed and said this was not worth it. This was not warranted. I presented that to the Public Works Committee. They could take a look at that. The county board said at that time it was worth it for effective mobility. There's just numerous examples. This is County Highway D. You can see they had a 90-degree corner. Again, another 90-degree corner. Again, it said, well, better mobility. This is northwest of the city of West Bend. Cutting the corner, right? There was roadways there that they could utilize. The last example I showed, and again, there's numerous ones of these, and we've done some more recently as well, is County Highway NN between Slinger and West Bend. The new Fleet Farm's going on the corner of Z and 33. If you want to go from Slinger to New Fleet Farm, you're probably going to be taking NN. If you look at this, remember, some of you might remember this, you used to have to drive between Timbers and the parking lot to get between Slinger and West Bend. So if you look at that, the roadway that was here before, coming down, coming between Timbers and the parking lot, there, coming here, make another turn, coming down south, going by Box Corners, a 9-degree intersection by the cemetery. The county, again, straightened out those curves. Again, a 55 to 45 mile hour, 55 mile speed limit in this area. Here's what you're talking about. So that's an effective mobility that we're looking at. Were there roads there that could have been used? Certainly, absolutely, but they've got to be improved with the traffic that's coming in the future. So we look at that route between Allenton and Hartford going, well, it makes sense to that. If you have deliveries coming from Zern's Lumberyard, get to Hartford, that delivery truck now got to turn on Highway S. If they're going back from Hartford to Zern's, they go up the hill on Highway S. Navigate a couple intersections. That's what we're really talking about, that effective mobility, looking at that mobility between Hartford and Allenton and West Bend, make that connectivity. I think that's such a crucial part of the piece of the puzzle there. Are there roads there that can be utilized? Absolutely. Are they as efficient as they could be? Absolutely not. But we wanted to make sure we included a bunch of this information in the packet. All the accident reports that Josh alluded to earlier, every accident report that was in there from 2012 to 16, kind of shows you what the accident history is there, because there was a lot of questions there. There's no accidents there. Well, I get these right from the sheriff's office, right from the state of Wisconsin. That's where we get those from. We look at those and review those. If you want the current numbers, actually the state of Wisconsin now has a website called Community Maps. You can get these online from 2017 on as well. So we review those current accidents that are out there. We included in your packet all the comments that we received from that public information meeting. I feel it's very important to communicate that stuff to you so you know what people came to that meeting and actually expressed their concerns to. As Josh alluded to, they're not all negative, some are positive. They want to make sure that you had all of the information that was given to you. I just want to point out with the 8 or so comments that we received, I did include in the packet the wealth of people that were actually there that didn't provide a comment. Josh mentioned people were kind of sampling for it. You look at the pages of people that were actually there, and we provided the paper and pens right when they came in. They could have simply just said, don't like it, and put it in the box. We'd have been put that in our comment sheet, but they didn't even feel the need to do that. So you'll see that they have this comment sheets available. Like I said, multiple people there. So this is the county-wide accident map that Josh had a snapshot for. That's also available on the county's website. I'll touch on this briefly, the cost estimate. As Josh mentioned earlier, that initial, that's not good. What I had included is our 30% plans. The initial comment we had was a roadway all the way between K and up to W. When I put that estimate together, I didn't know how much earth material is going to be moved. There's a gas pipeline that runs in that area, what that was going to cost. I put that estimate together. I wanted to make sure we were on the high side. I certainly didn't want to come to the committee or board and say, that's only cost $1 million. And then all of a sudden the price comes up higher and higher and higher. That's what my $4+ million estimate. You can see their estimate going from K up to that corner was about 3.2. So I was still a little bit high side. But the 30% plans are included in your packet, if you didn't know it. So they're highly detailed. We know how much earth needs to be moved for this project. We know how much asphalt is going to be needed and how much gravel is going to be needed. Looks like I lost it all. So I am confident in this engineering firm. This engineering firm, Garmer, has done much work for us in the past. I'm confident in the estimate. We gave them our numbers from our County Highway P project, which we completed in 2018. So they know the price of asphalt, they know the price of the gravel, stuff like that. So we're closer to gravel pits as well in this case scenario. So I'm confident in their price. So we did have them go out and look at the engineering firm, look at 3 potential options out there. So I just want to point out that the one we're proposing today is the purple or upper left-hand corner one that we're looking at up here. We did have them look at, that's a 45 mile an hour posted speed limit. The blue is a 55 mile an hour posted speed limit. And we decided that what if we decided to, throw caution to the wind and go right from the K intersection of 83 and go all the way up there, and what would that look like and what would that cost be? But we looked at this and going, well, yes, are we impacting some farm fields with this? Absolutely. Anywhere from 6 to 12 acres that we're impacting. But if we look at that area and the minimal impact that we do and how many fields are actually left intact, we're doing a pretty good job of respecting the agricultural fields that are out there. We've heard that loudly through impacting farm fields. If you look at this, we have this farm field has limited impacts. This one will have limited impacts. This road coming down, talking to the engineering firm, we can tighten that up to avoid impacts to this field. Are we going to impact this field and this field? Absolutely, 100%, no doubt about it. So, just pointing it out that we are looking at minimizing that as much as we can, to actually, put this roadway in and get that mobility, get that people from point A to point B. So that is out there. The last map that I have in front of you, try to zoom in as best I can without locking up the computer, is that intersection up there that we talked about. We are looking at making some improvements, and this actually came out of that public meeting that we had. Actually, one of the town supervisors came with this idea and said, hey, what about this? Because we had some ideas of cul-de-sac the area to try to alleviate the issues up there. And said, why not do this little, oh, it doesn't look real well up there. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Why not put in an S-curve? This intersection, it comes at a very big of a skew angle. If you're familiar with the areas of 144A north of West Bend, or H and A, where they realign those intersections, well, this will come in closer to a 90. Is it a 90? No, it's pretty close, about 80 degrees or so. Also, you look at this, is it still it's safer intersection? There's still a lack of sight distance to the south here. So we want to have as less traffic as we can at this particular intersection, because there is a hill just to the south of here that we're very limited intersection on sight distance. That intersection cannot go further to the south. It has to be further north. We're still right barely at the minimums even with this design. We also put in there to vacate this roadway. And what that means, that's still up to operations. Would the town of Addison like to take that over? It's kind of a raceway coming south, maybe make more of a turn lane, right turn lane to stop traffic, and put a four-way stop here, or two-way stops, maybe stop this direction, stop this direction. Could we vacate that, turn it over to those three property owners, put it back in the tax roll, split it up somehow, make it a private driveway? Those options are on the table. Vacate means, to me, we don't want it as a county highway anymore. And we would have those negotiations with the town of Addison, with those property owners to see what they wanted out there. So that would be kind of a piece of the puzzle. Again, this piece that we're talking here, potentially, we'd love to transfer that jurisdictionally over to the town of Addison, between W175. As I mentioned earlier, between S and the new extension to the south, here, that's, again, we'd love to transfer that over to the town of Addison. We did put that in our document that they would discuss that with us. Again, they're not being held to anything as their jurisdictional agreement. We put that out on the table so they knew it was part of the coming. They knew at some point in the future we'd be coming back to the town of Addison with that potential offer. Doesn't mean they're going to accept it, just putting them on notice that there's potentially out there. Potential to vacate that to the farmer if that's so be it. Again, we haven't had those in-depth conversations with the farmer to see if he's willing to accept that application or not. I think the last time we mentioned Public Works, he kind of laughed in the background and shook his head no. But again, we haven't had those in-depth conversations to see if that's something that he's truly interested in or not. So I don't think I see him here today. So, so that's what we look basically at that part too. But again, if we get rid of those stretch of roadways, the end deal this year and in future years actually becomes that much better if possible.
Okay, I'm going to start this off, discussion off. If you go back to our strategic priorities, effective mobility and reliable infrastructure, a safe and secure community. One of the things is my former life as a police officer, safe and effective movement of traffic on roads. That's what roadways are for. This has a couple other things that you could gain from it. You could alleviate some of the traffic off of Highway 144, which is not an easy road to negotiate, especially when there's a lot of parking on the road. Gives you a path to the Fox Valley from Hartford, safer intersections. We need to look at the long-term value to the county residents, to everybody that utilizes the roads. It's a big picture we need to look at. It's easy to be affected by noise, and people that are, affected by it, but everybody in Washington County that utilizes our road systems are also affected by it. This is an emotional issue. I understand everybody. I had a similar situation happen to me. I lived in the city of Glendale. I lived on Green Bay Avenue right across from Clutch Park. That's also Highway 57. There was an issue with traffic on Highway 43 on Titonia Avenue, and they wanted to alleviate some of that. There were some dangerous intersections along Highway 57. I didn't care for the plan, but I realized that it was the right thing to do. It alleviated traffic. They made it safer. I ended up losing 50 feet of my frontage, all the parking in front of my house, only had an alley access to my home for the people to come over, and I lost about a 75-year-old beautiful Crimson King maple in my front yard that was an heirloom to our family. So we have to listen and do what's right for our constituents and the county as a whole. Scott has gone way over what was required in this. This project has had more public input and communication than was ever required. Discussion's been happening for well over a year. We're always looking for our safe and mobility to make sure that we eliminate curbs, as Scott's shown. And this has been a history for Washington County. We look at dangerous areas and try to make them safer. You know, we focus through our 2050 plan, maintenance and safety, and you know, and we're looking at, you know, we've always been cutting, and trying to get rid of things, and you know, that's been brought up too. This is one thing that we can actually add that brings value to the community, and this plan puts an end to the northern reliever route. So, I'll take questions now. Supervisor Bishop?
I understand the necessity for improving the intersection for County Highway S, and I agree with that completely. I do not agree with extending County Highway W. I think we have two very good county highway roads right there. We don't need a third county highway in the same place. I do believe you may need some more money for County Highway S to improve how it connects to Old 83. That might be something that has to be revisited. But I would like to make a motion to amend the Resolution 68 to eliminate the County Highway W portion of this resolution and just keep the S. I know there's words that have to be fixed and money that needs to be realigned here, but I don't believe that the 200 million plus that's being spent on this short piece of road is necessary. I do not believe it is fiscally responsible to our county residents.
Are you calling for an amendment?
I am calling for an amendment.
Is it within? Okay. Second by Supervisor Connery. Any further discussion on the amendment? Supervisor Mahalik, are you on to the amendment? Or
Not to the amendment.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you read the amendment?
Okay, moved by Ms. Bishop, second by Mr. Conry, to amend 2018 Resolution 68 by, on page 1, lines 27 and 28, removing, just a second, lost it here. Removing the following language: the extension of County Highway W between State Highway 175 and State Highway 83, along with, and removing language on page 1, line 36, extension of County Highway W between State Highway 175 and State Highway 83 and the.
Okay. Supervisor Gallus, are you to the amendment? Okay. Supervisor Harbert to the amendment?
No, I want to speak about something else. I want to ask a
Well,
couple of
we're-
questions before we vote on this.
Okay.
I guess what I'd like to find out is, now you want to put a new W to match up with the old W, is there, how, it's going to send more traffic into Ellington. I guess my question is, what are you going to do with, you get 2 trains an hour. How are we going to take care of that problem down at 33 and W, right downtown here?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll answer. So, sure, certainly traffic will be going down there, a little bit more traffic than what's there right now. The answer is they will have to wait if you want to take that route for the train. That's it. That's the cold hard answer is that having more traffic down there, they'll have to go down to the train. We already discussed it with some town supervisors, how to maybe make some improvements at the intersection, making a left-hand only turning movement or right-hand only turning movement. So we're looking at making some improvements to the intersection, but yes, there are right now Canadian National currently today. Now, I don't know how many trains are gonna run next year or 5 years from now or 20 years from now, right? Could go less, could go more, but right now, as of today, yes. Will they have to wait potentially for a train? Yes, at certain times of the day, absolutely. But the other times of the day, no, they won't have to wait for a train, right? If you're stuck there now and you're going towards Hartford, you're stuck behind a train, whether you're using W or going S. You also look at, it's mobility that we're trying to improve upon at this area down by W and S and 175, and the accidents that we're addressing right there. So it's not a big accident history rate in Allenton at 33 and W. So we're not talking about 20,000 more cars a day or anything like that, Supervisor Hartwig. You know, we're talking about the people that are making that route right now, today. What are they doing today? They're waiting for the train today, right? Those people that are traveling from Hartford to Allenton or from Allenton to Hartford or West Bend to Hartford, they're waiting for that train. Will they still have to wait for that train a year from now or 2 years from now after we get this completed? Yes, they'll have to wait for that train. We're not going to put a bridge in Allenton because of the train or anything like that. So yeah, I apologize, but I don't mean to sound flippant, but they're going to have to wait for the train. We can't address that issue right in Allenton. I don't see this as a reliever route. You're not going to get 20,000 cars coming there per day. It's not your new state highway or anything like that. It's a county highway for county highway traffic.
We had a number of constituents at the public information meeting bring up this exact same thing, and at the time, we basically said we don't see a lot of traffic increase, but one constituent did make a good point, and that was traffic coming from West Bend particularly. If this improvement is made, likely will increase traffic coming from West Bend specifically to and from West Bend to Hartford and vice versa, because they likely will not use State Highway 144 as much. So there is some truth to your statement. I want to make sure to acknowledge that, because we did not acknowledge it at the public information meeting, and it likely is true. Probably will reduce the traffic on 144 through St. Lawrence, which last time we were for, but now we're against.
Well, I'd like to say something else. I think we'd be better off, it'd be a smarter move to take 83 up to S and straighten out that intersection so it comes out straight. So you get on 175 and you take that and go down, because I think it's a lot of money to spend and we're not going to gain anything. We're going to end up on a traffic jam downtown Allenton.
And I appreciate that, and again, I just defer back to the presentation. I think it's inarguably safer to have one intersection than three. People will discontinue their use of County Highway S between 83 and County Highway W where it is now, and all three of those spots are dangerous. And I know there's people in this room who drive that frequently. You can't tell me coming south on W and turning right heading west on S is a safe turning movement, nor is either one of the intersections to the west of that. So eliminating all three of those spots and having one intersection, is W and 175 going to be a dangerous intersection? Insofar as every other intersection that's a 90-degree, yeah, sure. But we believe that alternative of having the one is better than having the three. And that's your decision to decide if we're right or wrong.
You have to put a roundabout in on W.
Traffic counts aren't high enough to Scott's point.
Not even close.
How are you going to make it safer?
Safer, go ahead.
So safer is a design thing, right? So we look at the S175, what makes it unsafe? Skewed angles, poor sight distance, right? We look at 175 where it hits W, 90 degrees, perfect, good sight distance both ways, right? Wide open, you can see both ways, you can stop, look at it. As far as the roundabout, we're not even close. We're only talking a couple thousand cars per day on each of these roadways. A roundabout, you're talking about 14,000 cars per day. I'll pick up in years like on Highway P where you got roundabouts, where NN and G, you're talking 14,000 cars a day. We are light years away from that. And the roundabout, that's $2 million. And that's just something we're not even close to roundabout numbers.
I was just being
Oh,
sarcastic.
sorry, but,
I can relate.
But I
but,
do,
yeah, it's just,
I do think, what are you gonna do with W, the old W? I mean, that's gonna need work, I mean, you got hills there and everything else.
so yes, W is in your capital improvement plan for improvement in 2021. So 2021, we're looking at doing from 33 all the way down to 175. We've already started talking to the town of Allenton, town of Addison, with their utilities in their area, right by Zerns and the fire department and farms and stuff like that, your utility work through there. We'll be taking down the hills. No, those hills are still gonna be there. They're still going up and down the hills. That's why this is not gonna be a major truck route. Because you can imagine, truck route's not gonna get off on 33, wait for the train, then go up and down the hills on Highway W. So we don't see this as a big major truck route traffic. This is more your pedestrian routes, your kind of your deliveries from Zerns, maybe farmers going to their farmers market, you know, stuff like that.
That's
So-
part of the reason we proposed it now, is because that whole stretch of W is happening 2020.
2021, and that's why we're looking at Highway S to be done in 2020, because we're using Highway W for our detour route for County Highway K. Some people like their roads improved in their areas, some people just want to keep their roads old, but we're trying to make us, you know, some improvements in this area. This happens to be, we're doing a lot in the town of Addison and Hartford this next couple of years.
Did Mr. Geller, I believe his name is, did he offer even his buildings up, so you can make a safer turn up there on 83 and S?
At the public information meeting, he did yell out, "Go ahead and take my buildings down, you can have them." Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact words,
Yes,
maybe.
subsequent meetings weren't quite the same sentiment. He said it in a public meeting, yeah, Supervisor Krebs is right. He said it in a public meeting in a kind of a shouting way, and subsequent to that, money talks is essentially the response we got.
Supervisor Brandt?
Yeah, I just like to point out that both Hartford and Slinger are very fast-growing communities. And one of my concerns is the school district of Slinger extends all the way up to, well, quite a ways just, north of Allenton. A lot of children are transported on Highway 175. Those buses do go through that intersection at SN 175, the dangerous intersection. By reconfiguring 83, I think the safest route is this new Highway W extension that goes to a very good area, as has been pointed out, where there's good sight lines and a 90-degree angle there. I was for this original resolution at the Public Works Committee, and I still support it. I understand change is never something that everybody wants to see, but changes do happen. And I think that we have to look to the future. Washington County is a very fast-growing county, will continue to be for quite some time. And I think we have this opportunity to improve our road system in that area. And as a member of not only the county board, but representing the people in the village of Slinger, I would encourage a vote for the entire resolution and not to support the amendment.
Supervisor Carr?
Thank you. Am I correct in understanding, from my reading of this, that if the amendment gets voted down, and we then vote on the original resolution, then it takes a 2/3 vote to pass?
That's correct.
That's what I thought. Okay, so essentially voting on the amendment is a de facto vote on the entire resolution, because since the resolution requires 2/3, if a majority votes on the amendment in favor of the amendment, that's the end of the resolution. So it seems to me that we're ahead of we got the cart before the horse here, voting on this amendment before we have more discussion on the resolution. And what I would like to hear is some commentary from the supervisors here, who we've already heard from Supervisor Brandt, which is great. But I'd like to hear from Supervisor McCulloch and Supervisor Krebs. Krebs is the supervisor whose territory this impacts, is directly in his territory. Supervisor Mahalik, of course, we know is the mayor of Hartford. The description that we heard earlier has a lot to do with traffic in and out of Hartford. So I'd like to hear what those two gentlemen have to say and what they think about the entire resolution that has both W and the intersection of SN 175 in it. And I think until we hear those commentaries from at least those two gentlemen, I don't think we're in a very good position to vote on this amendment.
Okay, agreed. Supervisor Bishop, would you like to withdraw the amendment temporarily?
Temporarily.
Temporarily? Okay. If no one objects to that, any objections? Okay, we'll continue discussion on the resolution. Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Kerr, I appreciate your comments, as well as with Supervisor Brandt. Obviously, Slinger and Hartford are both growing quickly. He brings up, actually stealing something that I wanted to bring up, and that was the school system, the kids traveling through there. And it's interesting, and then please understand, I don't doubt at all some of the things that were mentioned, like 2 trains an hour and that. I just find it fascinating that of all the times, I go through that SW menagerie every time I go to West Bend. It's how I get there. From where I live in Hartford to there, I go there. I have never been stopped by a train. I'm going to go out and buy a lottery ticket after this. I can't believe that I've been lucky enough with that many trains going through, and as often as I come to West Bend, that I have never been stopped by a train driving to West Bend. That just is so strange to me. So, and of course, we do have trains coming through Hartford all the time, and I go drive up and down Wacker, and I get stopped actually quite frequently in the city of Hartford. The point I want to make is a couple of things. First, as to the reliever route, and obviously it was made very clear that the county board didn't want to go through the reliever route, and I attended the meetings with Transportation Secretary Ross, went up with Josh to Madison to be able to work out as far as the funding and to make sure that we, if you will, drove a stake through that heart to be able to go and be the part of the city of Hartford in what Scott put together. You know, we've got quite a thing here. This is just one of those parts that we're looking at, and I, you know, was joking around with Supervisor Krebs beforehand, because I will be voting for taking Arthur Road off that. So my fear, and of course, please understand, when it came to, just as a bit of histrionics here, what was going on with the reliever route. With the reliever route, we had control. We were able to do things, and maybe I know that there are people here that didn't necessarily care for it, but I honestly believe in my heart of hearts, it may not happen in my lifetime, I don't know, but I know that with the growth of Slinger, and especially Hartford, you're going to see a bypass. And look what Allenton had to put through, or put up with when the state came in and basically just told them what was going to happen. I mean, I still hear heartburn about all the things that went on with how that whole construction and completely redoing the town of Allenton up by 33. That's what I was trying to avoid. Is I want the control, and depending on who's sitting in the governor's office and who's controlling the assembly and the Senate, if they decide that they're going to put a bypass in, they're not going to have all the meetings that we're putting through here, except just to check boxes. We're not going to have the input. We lose the control, and we're going to end up with a bypass, which isn't going to be one lane each way. It's going to be 2 ways. It's not. It's going to be much more brutal, and I guess my goal, obviously now 2 years old now, because it was pushed back, was to make sure that we had as much control as possible, because we were local, we were able to do it, we took a pass on it, and one day, maybe I will be alive to give Mr. Krebs the I told you so, when they chew up all that land and put a bypass through. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. Personally, I think it's an inevitability. Coming off that, as regards to taking the W and the S, I am not for just canceling the W outright. I would consider something, or would be much more comfortable if you wanted to split it. But I think that it is good policy. In fact, you set up some phenomenal examples of having a forward-looking board, the county board, actually looking at something where, yes, you can fill a room. I mean, I remember in Hartford when the Walmart came through, the place was jammed right out the hallway of all the people that didn't want a Walmart. We got a Walmart, and boy, a whole bunch of people shop there. I mean, you will get the people that don't want something filling a room. That's how it works. The people that are for it are sitting home hoping we do the right thing. The people that are against it, obviously, who are definitely going to be more impacted by it and have strong opinions, are going to show up, and they should. I mean, that's how the system works. My one point, though, that I wanted to make is when you said we were going to take Highway 83 and that little sliver and we're going to give it back. My understanding, again, going for, I think it was Ms. Gehring who mentioned about the value of farmland, they can turn that into that valuable farmland, can't they? I mean, they can literally just take that all out, and it'll be a different set of property owners, and I understand that. So the property owners by the 83 will benefit, the property owners by the W. So now it's just, you know, lobbing grenades back and forth as to who. But we could replace that farmland in actual acreage by turning that over, and then they turn it into farmland, correct?
It is a possibility, yes. That
Thank
if
you.
we were looking at this roadway extension, we would have materials to fill in the old 83 or even the vacated area.
Right.
Yes, that's something that we could do, but again, we have not had that in-depth conversation with the farmer to see if that's something that is, we're looking at, but is that something we could do? Certainly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Supervisor Goddard.
Yes, thank you. I guess mine was mainly talking here about County S, but it actually relates to the whole thing. Scott and Josh, you both talked about intersections being dangerous. The more intersections you have, the more dangerous it is, you know, that type of thing. Well, by putting Highway W, extending it out, you are creating 2 more intersections. Where if you did Highway S and brought that in at a different angle at Highway W, you'd be doing the same thing without chewing up all that farmland, without probably spending half that money, and just improving that road. The only other way, in my book, is just take Highway S and bring it over to Highway 175, okay? Vacate the other part, give it to the township as a local road. They can post it at 10,000 pounds, whatever they want, and do your Highway W. I'm not in favor of doing that extension, but you could do that. And you could still get rid of that little sliver of Highway 83 from Highway S to the north, going to 175. You could still get rid of that sliver, because Highway S would still come to 175.
You talked about bending it up in this direction.
You could do that, or you could go straight through to 175.
Well, that's what we're doing on the plan right now.
Right, but I mean, you're going further with that, all the way out to Highway W, aren't you?
No, we're just, I can zoom in here a little bit more, but no, we're just, and I hope the computer holds on this one.
That's why you were putting those F screws
Yeah.
in here.
So the work that we're doing would be starting here and just reconstructing an S curve, thank you, Josh, from here to here, and from here to here would be the work. So the work on S is just basically at the intersection, putting in some probably turn lanes and bypass lanes along 175. So the S work is actually confined to the area that's right kind of inside the circle that I'm pointing to right now. We just show this gray because it stood out better than not having gray on the map down
What
below.
if you
So S actually does go all the way to W right now.
This is currently a road, goes all the way through.
Right, I know. I know, that goes all the way over to W.
Yeah.
So if you improve that part of the road, there's no rebuilding, there's be some rebuilding of that road, but there's no land taken over, there's no nothing. If you extend that road, your project going all the way over to Highway W, and then improve that intersection there,
Well, there's not that much traffic on Highway S to that area. That's what we're trying to get onto, there. So this intersection will be improved in 2021 when we do Highway W. So, but we don't need, this road in between here and here is in good shape right now. There's no need to repave it and use the taxpayers' money to widen it or expand it or anything like that. So,
But the amount of traffic that you're suggesting is gonna come on your extension of Highway W would then, if that wasn't there, would have to go down to Highway S, like virtually everybody uses today, and come over that way.
yes, it would. Right, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to increase mobility versus a person coming up 83, stopping, right-hand turn, stopping 175, going up a hill on S, and then crossing traffic on Highway W. That's, you know, those three movements versus one stop. So a turn, a stop, and another turn versus one stop straight ahead. That's what we're talking about when we talk about effective and efficient mobility. That's the difference between multiple stops, potentially dangerous areas, versus one stop at a well-designed intersection.
Well, this way, that way there you have 3 intersections. Now if you add on your Highway W, that's another 3 intersections. You have the intersection at 175, you have the intersection that's going over to Highway 83, both to the north and to the south. Scroll down one.
If we're able to do exactly what we're hoping and make jurisdictional transfers, and potentially give that stretch of County Highway 83 either over to the landowner or transfer it over, the traffic counts on S will plummet. There's essentially no reason to use S, particularly between 175 and W. The reason that this stayed with that S curve, the reason that the alderman asked for it, or the town board member asked for it, was because he wanted to be able to get these people in this subdivision out and onto 175. That's it. So the traffic counts here will go down to next to 0.
It'll be people that live in Iron Ridge, maybe working in Mayville or going to Zerns, those kind of things. But yes, it will be much less traffic.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have exaggerated. It won't be next to 0, but it'll be significantly lower than what it is today.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Starting off with, I feel that this that we're being asked to vote on today is 2 projects bundled into one. And that's my first problem with this. I feel that the extension of W and the safety improvements of S, I think, are separate projects. One's a safety improvement, one's a new road. So, as it stands right now, I'll be voting no on the resolution as proposed, just strictly on that basis. I think that it deserves 2 votes instead of 1 vote for both. On top of that, the funding aspect of it, I slightly still disagree with. I know the state money can be used for whatever we want, but I think we're chewing up all but $211,000 of it if we would proceed with this, or $210,000. I would definitely be in favor of the Highway S portion of it, or as the proposed amendment was. And if we could save approximately $2 million with that, and that money we could use to pay down our existing debt that we just issued this year, or in the years to come with the next $12 million of borrowing coming up, we would be able to pay for more of our projects right away. So, as presented, I'm not in favor of this plan, but I will be supporting the amendment when it does come back. Thanks.
Supervisor Galt.
Thank you. A couple of questions to the 4 points. So the first and foremost, and maybe I'm not understanding this, is how does this eliminate the northern reliever routes? I guess I don't understand that. And to point number 2 about the cost, $2.5 million being fiscally responsible, I understand some of it, but what I didn't see, page 52, about the cost estimate, I don't see anything for land unless I'm missing it. So purchasing the farmer's land?
It's real estate near the bottom.
Oh, real estate. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I missed that. So presumably that's fair value?
That's the currently value. We're purchasing land on Highway K. That was the current value on Highway K back in the fall of 2018. Could there be a slight increase between now and when we do the project, certainly.
Thank you. And then to safety, you know, if I did my math right, there was approximately, I think, 18 accidents in those intersection areas in 5 years. You know, how does that compare to other intersections? Is it more, is it less? Specifically W and S, if we're saying that's a bad intersection, if we're saying 175, 83, and S.
So it's coming to Public Works very soon, will be an intersection safety analysis that we've been doing. We did all analysis on the county-controlled intersections. If it's a county highway, meaning a county highway or county highway local road, we did those intersection analysis. We didn't do them on these, but I can tell you, looking at those numbers, that these are within the top 10% of accidents in the county. We have over 400 intersections that are county-controlled, okay? The top 10% of our 4 accidents or more per year, that gets you into the top 10% of accidents. So you're 6, now you're top probably 25%, top probably like 8% of the intersections. But just by having that one intersection, I think S and 83 had 6, or 175 and 83 had 6. One had 5, one had 4, something right around that number. So you're talking down to 4 accidents intersection in a 5-year span. You're now in the top 10% of the accidents intersections in our county. So when you start getting up to that 6 number, you're now in the top maybe 8% of accidents. And we don't rank them just on accidents, but also on severity and the rate of accidents too. So that's the numbers we haven't worked out. Just on pure accidents alone, they're in the top 10%.
Okay. And then I guess the last.
But W and S is not. They only had 1. If you look in your report, I think it was 1 in the report. So that is not within the top 10%.
Okay, well, thank you. And then, so extending that road, obviously if you're going from 83 to 175, you're crossing 175, which is going to create some inherent risk unless you put stoplights or stop signs there. But if the intent is to, well, from a modality standpoint, moving traffic from Hartford up into West Bend on, if it's 83 to W, if the count is less than 2,000 a day that you estimated, and now that increases, aren't you increasing the risk of accidents on 175, which is 60, 75 miles an hour?
Well, those same cars are using now S and 175, so it's getting those same vehicles to a safer intersection. And if it does increase, you're also getting it to a safer, well-designed intersection. So traffic volumes in this county are going to keep rising. That's a matter of fact. So there's no doubt that they're going to keep rising. So yes, will the probability go up? Certainly, just like any other intersection. Once you have more traffic volume at it, is there a likelihood? Yes, because people maybe aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing at those intersections. But it's definitely a safer intersection than the ones that are out there today. So is there always a possibility? Certainly, but not a high probability.
Well, I get it, and that's where my concern is, because people are like rivers and water, right? We find the least path of resistance. So as we make it easier to take side routes, people will do it. Just like you put in a new subdivision, now you connect 2 disparate sections, people run through the subdivision to make it quicker and easier. So if we already have roads 175 that goes up, I did it today. It's not that big of a loop to take 33 over 175 and come down to 83, for example. So if there's the biggest concern about that intersection, why don't we put our thoughts and energies in redoing that intersection of 83 and 175?
If you drive that every day, that's a heck of a long ways out of the way of where you're driving. I don't know anybody that drives from West Bend.
It's 2 or 3 miles, I get it, I do.
It's kind of the believer out there.
Thank you.
They wouldn't go 2 or 3 miles.
Supervisor Schleifer.
Thank you. This is all very interesting. I think, you know, nobody said if we kill 1 person there, then it's all worthwhile. So, you know, I'd hate like heck in a year or 2 to look back and say, oops, I wish we'd have done this. And talking from a guy that drove a lot of miles as an engineer in my career, you take those shortcuts. And personally, I would avoid S because it's 3 intersections versus 1, if we're allowed to do that. The other ace in the hole here is if you come down W and you keep going on 175, you're going through St. Lawrence. And last year we went through the design of K, and we're designed curb to curb now in St. Lawrence. If we send any more traffic through St. Lawrence, then there's going to be trouble there. even though it's gonna be a nice road, you know, if they need to put a stoplight at that corner, then buildings have to come down. So, you know, we lose some farmland, and that's sad, but, you know, the big picture is what we have to look at, so let's look forward.
Supervisor Kelly.
Just to put a point on all this, first of all, I drive truck for a living. It's what I do, basically. I'm very knowledgeable of all these little county roads because I'm flying down them all the time. I've done a lot of business in Hartford. I've taken that way many, 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 many times. I can't even begin to imagine. The number of people that travel between West Bend and Hartford is not going to change. That's probably going to remain constant or increase, right? So what we're saying now is we're going to improve Highway S, and according to Ms. Bishop's amendment, that's it. So you're going to have like, so maybe 1,500 guys or people going through that still bad intersection. I agree with Josh, you got 3 intersections versus 1 intersection. The simplicity of that, the beauty of being simplistic is that it's much less, it's much easier. We're not going to divert over to 175, we're not going to go down to Highway K. We're going to go down W to S over to 83. And it is dangerous. That much I can vouch for. Even with these improvements, I think it'll be better, but it's still inherently dangerous. 175 is heavily trafficked. 83, and the over-the-shoulder look, even with straightening out 80%, it's not going to be good. By taking W and making it straight down, it's going to be extremely efficient, way safer. And like I said, you're not going to reduce the number of people traveling between West Bend and Hartford at all. So making it difficult for them by, you know, not doing W and keeping with S is not going to dissuade anybody from traveling that route. So you're putting those people at risk by not doing it. W makes sense. You have 1 intersection versus 3. You have a lot better sight line without a big hill there. That's the other thing that really didn't get a lot of mention. Where that S curve is to the east, there's a hill right there. So traffic comes over the crest of that hill. Even with that S there, that comes on you fast, because guess what? They don't exactly follow the speed limit on that road either. So by moving W down where it's proposed, what you're talking about is a nice flatter area with much better sight lines. The safety component of that alone should be a huge improvement. Like I said, what we really need to get on is we're not going to reduce the number of people traveling this route. We're going to be probably increasing it regardless if we did nothing. So let's do the best we can to make sure that we do something that has safety in mind. I've talked to a few people on the other side, and I told them, and the ones I know, Mr. Gehring, I know is probably here, I told them, I definitely want to listen. I'm very concerned about farmland. But what it comes down to, number 1 for me, is safety. That's it. This is much safer. It is a much better idea. And it will be utilized by the people who travel this route every day. Thank you.
Supervisor Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Josh, can you bring that picture down to S again?
It'll be there.
Okay, from my understanding, the traffic that comes off of 175, a right-hand turn lane, because that's such a gradual turn, that their signal lights don't cancel. That's why we have all those accidents at S and K. Is that true?
I would say you need to look at the reports, and I don't know if all the reports actually substantiate that, Bob. That's why I included those in for you. We can certainly take a look at those. They're in the packet. But of course, they're not all because of that, no.
That's why I was wondering if you should.
I heard an 80% number up in front. I don't have the.
What was that?
Other supervisors mentioned 80%. Again, I did not run the numbers, so.
That's why I was thinking maybe it should be more of a 90-degree angle or something, so they cancel out more. Because I was told that it's a signal light problem. The the signal lights don't cancel out because it's too gradual of a turn. And then they think they're turning on S, or they go down as far as K, and they pull right out in front of them.
I think one thing that you're looking at here is that, it was alluded to earlier, people are coming off of 175 to 83 at a very high rate of speed. They're allowed to do that today, kind of as you alluded to. And if they're turning their signal on or off, it's a matter of getting them to slow down. But what we're looking to do is have them actually go all the way down to this new intersection, in a safer intersection, actually make traveling on S safer as well. So in this direction.
The only problem with the W is what, in Ellington, you're gonna run in trouble. I know the train, I know Tim maybe, so he's lucky. I hit the train all the time. He should get in the lottery or something, you know? But,
I get a ticket in Allenton on my way home.
I get the train every time.
While you're waiting for the train.
Well, I'm waiting for that.
If I could, if we just look at where W is proposed to cross, the other thing I just want to point out is that location, this probably hasn't been touched on enough. That location, as compared to where S currently crosses, not only is there better sight distance, there's no hill. If you haven't traveled out here south of S, as you crank your neck to the left, as you're heading west, there's a hill that you're looking at. Here, there is no hill. The hill's farther back, so you have plenty of sight distance, and vehicles coming from the southeast heading northwest are coming out of St. Lawrence. And they're accelerating, but they're not coming at the same rate of speed as they are farther to the north. And that's part of the reason we made the proposal. It is a 55-mile-an-hour area there, don't get me wrong, but it's different, it's a completely different intersection than otherwise.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. How much does it cost to build a roundabout?
It's about $2 million. That's building, design, right of way, so the whole, from start to finish, is about $2 million. That's what it cost us to do the one on G and NN back in 2015. So if you want to throw a little, inflation on top of that, so roughly $2 million for a small single lane roundabout.
Seems hard to understand how one roundabout can cost what you're proposing for this entire project.
Roundabouts are expensive. Usually you get a lot of real estate that's involved with them. You're putting them at business corners and stuff like that. Plus you're going back far away. You look at that roundabout, how far back they actually went. They went all the way back to the tracks to get to the roundabout there at GNNN. So you look at that roadway, there's not just a roundabout of, the imprint of a 100-foot circle. It goes back quite a ways to get those turning movements kind of in and out of the roundabout. So if you look out there, even, I know we repaved end to the east, but if you look at how far down and up the roads we went, there's actually quite a bit of lane miles out there as well. Concrete work, stuff like that, staging, because you want to keep the intersection open during construction. So there's a lot of costs go into a roundabout.
Never heard a road builder and an engineer complain about it.
Well, the reason I ask is because it seems like the safest solution would be to put 3 roundabouts in. Roundabouts are very safe. They slow people down, and there's no 90-degree interaction between vehicles.
Build another Cabela's.
Mobile price of $6 million.
Well, and, this is a much more rural environment than Z and N. I mean, so the land costs would be lower, and you wouldn't have to take as much land, I wouldn't think. But at any rate, I wondered if you'd considered that kind of an idea.
Based on cost and the traffic volumes, no, it just didn't seem feasible to put 3 roundabouts out there. You would be, it's a significant amount of land for a roundabout too. I know it's ag land and taking ag land, but it just not warranted for the traffic volumes that are out there. There will be coming up in the near future some ideas for some roundabouts, so you'll get your chance at that later this year.
Thank you.
Supervisor Berg.
Thank you. I'm looking at, can you scroll down to the new WS? I don't see 3 intersections there, I see 4. I see 4 intersections where you're at. I see the one coming from the north, I see the south intersecting with 83. So I see Highway W intersecting north and south lanes, I see 4 intersections there.
No, there's one here.
Yes, sir.
Yep, a potentially second one here.
correct?
Again, depending on how we do this, this could also be cul-de-sac, depending on how we do the town. This is then a curve that goes right onto 83. That's it.
What's the road to the north? Where the 80, no, down, the road to the north of where 83 and W hit.
That's dry.
That's a driveway?
Yeah, this,
Scroll up. No, go down please, to the south. Okay, I see W hitting 83 at two different locations. That's a driveway?
no, there's a driveway. We have two actually alternates on here. So if you follow the gray line, you'll see the gray line blends into right where 83 is right now, so.
The one road that goes like this.
Oh, that's 83 south.
This
Oh,
one
yeah.
into
Oh, right here?
Yes, sir.
That will be eliminated.
this stretch, yes.
And either this intersection will become a town road, or
Okay, I understand.
or it'll be vacated the property.
I thought 83 was staying straight through, and those cars were gonna cross that way. We have an intersection similar to that on 83 and Terry Lane, which is way down.
It's very, very.
Yes. Thank you.
Supervisor Sedgwick.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. First, was there a traffic study done on how many cars actually drive these roads? I'm not familiar with the area, so I drove out there and just kind of got familiarized with it. I think I'd have a different opinion if I drove it every day. But from when I was out there, I sat there for 15 minutes with my flashers on, and I seen like 5 cars go by.
Did you see a train?
I didn't see any trains. So I'm assuming in the mornings, the evenings, there's rush hour, it's great, a lot more traffic.
So not a traffic study per se, because that's actually a expensive report that you do, but traffic counts were done out in that area. And actually, the traffic counts were done by the DOT and not by the county. So traffic counts were done in the area, but not a traffic study. Just there's a terminology there, so.
Okay, what were the counts? I mean, is there a amount of?
Yes,
I
there,
guess, you know, is
I don't know if I include that.
2,000 cars going through there a day, or is there?
Yeah, I believe W north of intersection had 1,700 cars per day. South here had about 700 cars per day. I want to say 1,600 cars per day on S, 900 cars per day over on S west over here, and in that 2,000 range on 83 and 175. All the traffic counts are actually available on the DOT's website, just like Traffic Counts Wisconsin DOT. There's a nice interactive map. You can zoom in. They have the history of them, all that kind of stuff. So it's right on the DOT's website.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bosser.
So Saturday, I stopped out in that area. I actually walked in the field where this road's gonna go, kind of gauge how much farmland it was gonna take, how little. I think that Scott and Josh have put together a plan that's as respectful of the farmers as it can be and preserve as much farmland as possible. I think if it was the green route, I'd probably be a no because of how that would impact the farms. Being the purple route, the impact is much, much less. I know if I owned that farm, I wouldn't want it. But I'm leaning towards yes because I think the impact has been minimized to the maximum extent it can be on this. And I do see the value of the route overall. I think it's silly to have a road come out of Allenton and just stop in the area at 175 and a separate road come out of Hartford and stop in the area of 175 and not to connect them. I just think that's silly. So I'm leaning towards being a yes vote on this.
Yes, sir, thank you. Point of clarification from the attorney. We've got a motion on the floor to take out a highway W, but we have numbers in there. How can we vote on an amendment when are you gonna give all the money then to Highway S? Doesn't that all need to be changed then before you can pass this motion to amend?
It was your movie.
Yeah, likely, if there's any amendments to be made there in terms of dollars and cents, I would defer to the.
Have to go back to committee, correct?
I don't know about back to committee.
The dollar amounts are in my committee report.
Does that have to be in this resolution?
You could send it back, that's an option.
It's an option.
if you pass the amendment, with the numbers that are in here, does that make it binding then?
If the amendment passed, I guess it would be an alternative motion to just send it back to committee and get that all squared away and then come back.
And these say amounts not to exceed anyway, so even if you left them alone, I can't imagine that would cost that much if it's contemplated to do two.
Yeah, I think to your point, that would be the cleanest way, but it's possible we could do it tonight if that's what was preferred. We could do either one.
I didn't make them, that's why I want to know, because I don't want all the money to go into one project.
Supervisor Jenkins.
Thank you. I apologize if this is already answered, but the land that we're acquiring for the new road, can you explain the process of how we're going to acquire that land? Are the farmers already eager to give it to us, or is that government just coming in there and grabbing it?
I would say they are not eager, to say the least, for doing that. So we would follow the eminent domain process. I know that's probably an evil word, but what that does is we go out there, just like we did on Highway K and any of our construction projects. We go out, we independently hire an independent appraiser. We could do it ourselves in-house, but we don't. We hire an independent appraiser. Then we hire an independent acquisition team that's separate from the appraiser. So we get two people looking at that numbers as well as Washington County looking at numbers. And then they make phone calls and make contact with the residents, talk to them about the project, show them the maps of the project, make them an offer. They discuss the project. They have what's called a statement to construction engineer where they can make comments about it. Let's say they had a tree they want to try saving, mailbox, something like that, they can put in that statement to construction engineer. And then we offer them what's called a fair market price, right? We don't lowball them or overball them, it's an appraised value, right? So the appraiser will go out there, look at other land values, other sales, and then that's what we offer them and see if we can come up with an agreement. And if we can't come up with an agreement, then they don't agree to the price and don't sign the paper, then we take it by, the eminent domain process. That's just the whole process together and then take the land from them and pay them the compensation. So they will be paid, fair market wage for that land.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comments, we can address the amendment to the resolution. We have a Supervisor Murray.
My comment would be, could we read the amendment as it would be stated in the resolution? Could we read the resolution with the amendment in it, so we know what the verbiage is?
Could you read that again?
Let's see if I can get this straight. Okay. The amendment calls for removing language from lines 27 and 28. So if you go down to 27 and 28, removes any reference to County Highway W. And then on line 36, removes any language pertaining to County Highway W between State Highway 175 and State 83, and a few other
Could
words.
you read it as?
It's not easy to do that, Marilyn. I'll try. Okay, let me start. I'm going to start with line 25. Whereas due to the county's 2050 Transportation Networks Sustainability Plan and recent jurisdictional transfers, the Highway Department reviewed construction projects and schedules for a number of highway projects and believes, just look at this a second, believes with the realignment of the intersection of County Highway S and State Highway 175 are high priority projects that were not included in the 2018-2022 CIP. Okay. And as such, staff is requesting to utilize funds from the jurisdictional transfer of State Highway 83 and County Highway FD from the state of Wisconsin to complete these projects. That's a change in that paragraph. Then we're going to go down to line 33, and I'll start reading there. Now therefore be it resolved by the Washington County Board of Supervisors that the 2018-2022 capital improvement plan shall be amended by allocating an amount not to exceed $2,550,000 from the funds received from the state of Wisconsin, let's see, for the, just make sure, get that. Realignment of the intersection of County S and State Highway 175 projects. I think that's what you are approving. Any reference to County Highway W is removed from there. Those two paragraphs.
And then it becomes project and not project.
Right.
Correct, correct.
Grammatic.
Right.
That's fine.
Good?
Yeah, I'm just not so sure that I'm not so sure that that 2.5 million should be in there. I mean, we're talking, bigger lots, less than that.
It shouldn't, I think that was Supervisor Basil's point earlier. So that's why I think it would make sense to refer it back to committee. It's an option. We can go back, we can take a recess, we can figure the math out, we can refer it back to committee, whichever way.
Right, but we don't want to do it on the fly.
Right there.
Practically speaking, if I may, if the resolution was put together as it was for a reason, and I know there are supervisors who didn't like it, Supervisor Krebs made that very clear to me back in February of last year when the whole thing was one package, he made it clear to me again afterwards. However, we were negotiating, okay? So the question that came up earlier about what does this have to do with the reliever route? Everything, from the beginning of the process to where we're at now. It's easy to separate them now that you've approved one piece and not the other, but they were all together for a reason. If you do the math on mileage, if we are to do the connection of W and transfer over the piece of 83 and S, we end up with less mileage in the long haul. Okay, so that's why I said in my presentation, in the short term, you're playing with the state's money, in essence, the bank's money, if you will. You're using the bank's money to build yourself a new road and divest yourself of roads that are currently on your map. You end up with net less roads. It was a negotiation. I'm a negotiator, believe me. No, nothing, sorry. So, the intent was, have it as a package. If it fails as a package, we're certainly gonna come back with S. If you don't wanna do it that way, you can make the amendment as proposed. If you don't wanna do it that way, you can send it back to committee, which would be the cleaner process of amending it today. So you have options. We plan for it that way from the beginning. Whichever works easiest, we could take a recess and figure it out, whatever you'd like. But in any event, we'll come back to S, however you choose to do that, if you decide not to do the extension.
Okay. Supervisor Bishop, do you still have a question?
To alleviate the concerns of several of the supervisors about that amount, when I asked for W to be removed, there was an amount of 2.1 million associated with the extension of W, so then that, in essence, would be removed from this resolution, which would bring it back to the 450,000 that was proposed for the S.
It's up on the screen. Yep, you're right. It's a rather simple calculation.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I wanted to offer a couple friendly amendments to the amendment. And the two were changing the dollar amounts to 450,000 on line 35 and line 42. So that would be clarified that it's not to exceed 450. My other friendly amendment would be on line 37. I would keep it as projects, and I would add the language "and future vacation of Highway 83 north of County Road S." So that would, I'm making it clear that we're still looking at the 3 intersections in a row up on the north side of this, of the map that we keep referring to.
Okay. Do we need a second?
Your amendment maker and your second would have to agree to that.
the change on, what line would that be? No, it's still down one.
It's line 35.
37, and 42 is not part of the resolution. But it's
Okay.
their information, so you can change it.
Right, we're clear on that then? Yep, okay.
What was the last portion he wanted to add?
Just 450,000.
No, he's adding this first and then the second one is separate? Or is he adding them both
He's
together?
adding it to the, it's a friendly amendment.
No,
to the-
he added the
No, but he
80.
added something at the end.
Two parts of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I need to know what that is.
What was the other part?
And where.
The second friendly amendment was just.
It was on line 37. I'll read line 37. County Road S and State Highway 175 projects and future vacation of Highway 83 north of County Road S, period. Got that?
Do you,
No,
do you have it all written down?
I do.
Can you?
I don't have to.
Future vacating,
Chairman? Hold on a sec. All right, we're gonna take some more comments. Supervisor Bullock?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted some clarification as to what it will take to pass the resolution. I was under the impression that because it's the comprehensive plan, that it would only need a 51% to pass
50% plus, right?
versus a 2/3 vote.
This is changing,
I thought the
Capital
chiller was
This is
two-thirds.
a change to the capital improvement plan. By our code, that requires 2/3.
Supervisor Carr?
If the amendment passes, it only takes a majority, but then to pass the amended resolution still takes 2/3, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Read that back.
do you want me to,
Yeah, can you read it back?
all of it or just that last
Just the
one?
friendly part of the amendment. So we have that straight.
So we also changed 2.55 million on line 35 and line 42 to 450,000. We also on line 37 adding in future vacating of Highway 83 north of County Highway S after the word projects.
Is that good?
yes.
We changed the vacation to vacating of. Sounds
Correct.
a little- Rather than going on a trip. Okay, all right, any further comment? Seeing none, we'll vote electronically on the amendment. The amendment fails. Any further discussion on the resolution? Supervisor Bossert.
One thing I forgot to mention before that I think we need to consider, if we do this extension, then with the exception of regular road maintenance and scheduled road rebuilding, we need to be done redesigning our road network west of 41 and north of 60 for the next 20 years. I believe that we should be done at this point with that area of the county if we pass this. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you. I just wanted to be sure, Josh, you mentioned that if this would fail, that you would end up having to come back with the county S portion separately, correct? Or is that something that you would do in the future? I mean,
I'm gonna have to think about that
okay,
after this whole
I
thing's
just
over.
wanted to know, because obviously, and like Supervisor Brandt mentioned, I think that the safety of the kids that are traveling this route should cause all of us pause before we just willy-nilly vote it down. So I'm going to be voting to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think when we look at the plan, what we have been elected to do, what our long-term strategic priorities are, this fits that. Like I said, I fully acknowledge and I understand what the people that own the properties that are going to be affected. I know what the farming is going to be. I don't understand the farming. Marcy and Bob know much better on that. But what we really need to realize is that we represent everyone in Washington County, everyone that needs to go utilize those roads. And safety is a priority. Public safety is our #1 priority in our strategic goals. Having a safe and efficient route falls right into that. So I'm going to support this, and I would ask that you do also. Thank you.
So we're frozen. So we
You're
need
frozen?
to, yeah, we need to reset the system.
Okay.
Because of a call in while I
We
was
take a
resetting.
recess?
We'll take a 7-minute recess. All right. Everybody had a good break, and now we're back, with the computer back up. So we will vote on this electronically.
Hold on, what?
Resolution 68.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Yes.
That much? All right, the green one. Or
Green or red?
Everyone tell me how to vote though.
Oh, I wouldn't dare.
Need a two-thirds vote, motion fails. All right, resolution 69, Washington County request revision of county jurisdictional highway system plan, Vision 2050 plan, and a county comprehensive plan, remove Arthur Road as a potential northern reliever route. Motion by Supervisor Krebs, second by Supervisor Bullock. Any discussion? Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to start out by thanking both you and Administrator and Josh for bringing this to the county board for us to debate here tonight. I do feel that this will at least bring if this passes, some closure to the reliever route. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, we'll vote electronically. Same problem, Pete. Motion passes, 23-2. I want to deviate a little bit from the agenda at this point. There's no objections. And read a proclamation. Sheriff Schultes, if you come forward.
Don, your microphone.
Can you hear me? Okay. Whereas January 9th is to be held as a day to honor and thank active law enforcement officers. Whereas the Washington County Sheriff's Office led by Sheriff Martin Schultes includes over 200 sworn deputies, correctional officers, communication officers, and support staff. Whereas other law enforcement agencies in Washington County include West Bend Police, Hartford Police, Germantown Police, Slinger Police, Kewaskum Police, Jackson Police, Newburgh Police, Trenton Police, Wisconsin State Patrol, and the Department of Natural Resources. Whereas the Sheriff's Office partners with these agencies for drug enforcement and to form an effective SWAT team. Whereas the Washington County Sheriff's Office provides a town liaison program to protect the village of Richfield in towns of Addison, Barton, Erin, Farmington, Germantown, Hartford, Jackson, Kewaskum, Polk, Wayne, and West Bend. Whereas every day these men and women put their lives in harm's way to ensure the safety of our county. Whereas the Sheriff's Office staff and local agencies ensure that we can enjoy large-scale entertainment events such as the U.S. Open at Erin Hills or the County Fair and the guarantee of a safe and secure community. Whereas the Sheriff's Department educates our next generation with the DARE program, be it therefore proclaimed that today, the 9th of January 2019, be Law Enforcement Appreciation Day across Washington County, dated this 9th day of 2019 and presented at the January 2019 County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Thank you very much, everyone. This is for not only Washington County Sheriff's Office, but all law enforcement within Washington County. It doesn't matter if you wear brown, blue, gray, tan, suit and tie. But I can say on behalf of the Washington County Sheriff's Office that we certainly appreciate the Washington County supervisors, your commitment to public safety. So it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, consideration of 2018 ordinance 14 standing committees, authority, membership, duties, and quorum. Entertain a motion. Motion, Supervisor Jenkins, Supervisor Sorcy. Any discussion? Any questions? Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. First, reading the ordinance, how it's worded, the chairperson of the committee does not have to approve the teleconference. Is my understanding that correct? So they can just do it without the consent of the chair?
But you do have to call into the clerk's office to
Arrange it?
arrange for it to happen. So.
Okay. Secondly, there's no limit to the number of committee members that can do it, so theoretically no one has to show up? Except for through Skype, telephone, whatever it is?
Correct.
Okay, those are two concerns that I have that, how is it a public meeting if no one's there other than a video screen?
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor Foster.
Okay, have we made improvements on the technology piece of this? I know I attended one of these meetings virtually, and it was basically, I was on speakerphone at the meeting. So I had no visibility at the meeting, people couldn't see me, I couldn't see them. Has that changed at all?
That's a part of the boardroom update, this room and room 2024. So we're working on that. It hasn't
Okay.
been done yet, but that's in the plan.
What's the anticipated completion date for that?
I'm not sure. As of right now, this room is first, and we're working on the new voting system currently.
Okay, but do you have a rough timetable? Or-
I do not. No.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to hold off on this for now until we have those pieces in place. My one experience doing a meeting virtually was less than adequate, where I didn't feel connected to the meeting, where I could see everybody, I couldn't always hear everybody perfectly. So I think we need to get that technology in place first and then go ahead with this.
Well, I think the expectation of this is that if you can attend, you will attend, even though it really doesn't state so. But in the event that, I know there are people that travel for their business, and it makes it just strategically impossible for them to attend every meeting. It's another opportunity, and you know, as as we upgrade and things get much easier, the ease of communication, I think it'll probably end up being more frequent. But I think still, I think most of the supervisors are gonna make certain that they attend if they can. Thank you. Supervisor Bishop.
I personally have a problem with this. I understand once in a while members may not be able to attend a meeting, but they still want to take part. The way it stands right now, they have that chance once every 3 months if they need to utilize this. I think making it available all the time, I'm afraid it will be abused. Most of us will not do that. If you do not have the time to attend meetings, then you should think about your ability to serve before you run for office. Once you've decided to run for office, you need to be there to represent your constituents. And I would vote no for that.
Thank you. Supervisor Bullock.
Thank you. One of the concerns that did come up was about us as representatives being there in front of the people. But we thought in our executive meeting, let's give this a try, and if it doesn't work, we can always reverse it or make changes in the future. So I think it's worth a try.
Supervisor House.
I have to echo what Supervisor Bolow had just stated. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. If I were in a job where I could literally be in the same place at the same time all the time, it wouldn't be a problem. But so many of the constituents that we have tend to be mobile in there, and I think that those people deserve an individual that would be able to utilize technology. Burying our head in the sand as to the use of technology, I think, is foolish. So therefore, I will be supporting this, and I would encourage you to support it. I think that the voters can speak. If you start to abuse it, I think the voters are going to want you here, and the voters will let you know that by not re-upping you, if you will. They have a shot at us every 2 years. So again, I would encourage your support for this. Thank you.
Supervisor Schleif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was previously discussed, we did talk about this in the executive, about the possibility of, coming to a meeting and only 2 people are there or 1. But we're all elected officials. Again, they get a shot at us every 2 years. And if they think they can do better, maybe they should run. But yeah, we take our responsibilities pretty seriously, and I don't think anybody's going to abuse this. Obviously, if somebody does, we're going to do something about it. So in the spirit of the way it was brought up, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Supervisor Gallus.
I agree with creating that opportunity, but the additional infrastructure issues, I know Ashley had mentioned about the boardrooms, but laptops are going to have video conferencing available on them, or iPads to be able to complete that connection. So that's something that will have to be considered in addition to the physical boardroom.
Supervisor Kelly.
I was the chairperson of one of the original committees that brought this forward. It was a good idea then, it's a good idea now. Technology offers us the ability at committee level meetings to be involved even when it's sometimes difficult. I did attend one of these meetings via conference, and I found it no problem. Doing it over the phone was just fine. Not ideal, not as good as being there, of course, but that's expected. Overall, I thought it was fine. My last administration meeting, there was myself and one other person. So thankfully, Mr. Greenwald stood in and we had a quorum. But I think it would have been probably possible had one of those persons just thought that they can just call in and we can make it set up. If we start utilizing it, making it more available and freer to use, we can make sure that we have the proper quorum. These are committee meetings. We're not talking about board meetings. They're just committee meetings to get things to the board for the final vote. It's just the first guard. So I think we should support this. I don't believe anybody really looks to abuse it. There's a lot of people that are unfortunately unable to attend their meetings that hopefully we can get more involved, increase the involvement by doing teleconferencing. Thank you.
Supervisor Martin?
Thank you. I've listened to all the comments, and I guess I don't agree with most of them. We talk about transparency all the time and how we want to be transparent in what we do. And to be not available for committee meetings is something that is a commitment. And either you're committed to serving on the county board and attending your committee meetings, or you're not. And I understand some people have occasions where they may have difficulty in attending. That's already in a resolution. Now, it's only been since April, was the first month it should occur, yet now we're back and asking for more. And I just don't feel that it's appropriate for any county board member to feel that they need to have time away from the county committees in order to participate in the meeting. At one time, I know I personally was involved in a situation where I couldn't attend a meeting, and I was very involved in the situation, and I was allowed to listen on the telephone, not to speak and not to vote. And I think people should play firm and be firm in their commitment to county government.
Supervisor Carter?
Well, I have to say that in this modern day of technology, there's no excuse whatsoever for not allowing people to communicate from long distance and fulfill their responsibility in these meetings. I mean, we get elected, our responsibility is not only to attend the meetings, but also to be able to tell our constituents what the heck went on and why and what happened. And if we aren't in the meetings, we can't do that. And you can do that by telephone or even better, video conferencing. But I've been in a lot of telephone conferences in my career, and it hasn't been a problem. We have a lot of people here who are working. There's many of us who are retired, but there's a lot of people who are working. And when you're working, you never know what's going to come up. And your responsibility is for your family and to your career is to do what is necessary for your job. So this gives people the opportunity of participating, of learning what happened in the meeting, of voting, playing a role, and living up to their responsibility to their constituents. So I think it makes all the sense in the world. I talk to my daughter in China all the time, video conferencing, FaceTime and Skype. I mean, these things are available. People use them all over the world. And for us to say, well, we're not going to allow that more than once in a while, to me, just doesn't make any sense.
Supervisor Sarsi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been on this board for a while, and I'm not going to say how long. Anyways, I've been here for a while, and it's a big commitment when you run as a supervisor. You represent a lot of people, and I was in Madison this morning. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to do teleconference. And I'm knocking teleconferences because I've been in a few of them. But your first number one priority is to your constituents and to listen to what they tell you. I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but I certainly, if we had to do it, I wouldn't oppose it. Thank you.
Supervisor Bosher?
I think there's some confusion about my point. I'm not anti the use of technology. We just don't have all the infrastructure in place yet. So my thought is we should get that in place first and then open it up to more than one meeting a quarter. That's all I'm suggesting. So I'm going to be a no vote today, but in a year from now, if all the technology is in place and this comes up again, I'll be a yes.
Okay, seeing no further comments, we can vote on this electronically. Motion passes 16 to 9. 2018 Ordinance 15, Washington County Staffing Plan, Planning and Parks Department, Facilities Division, Washington County Classification Compensation Plan, 70203. Somebody speaking to that? Motion. Or motion for Supervisor Sarsi, Supervisor Brandt.
We put together a pretty thorough report, and we're both here, myself and our building and grounds manager, Kara Rich, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll vote. Okay, we'll quick on the trigger there. Supervisor Gals.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple questions, as we take on additional staff, especially HVAC, so we have no concerns about future being able to fill that technical skills position. There had been a reason why we went to a contractor in the first place, so bringing it back in-house, I just want to make sure that we're equipped to be able to hire said skill set.
We do not have any concerns about hiring the skill sets at this time.
Okay, and then the second question, as was mentioned in the board packet, there could be some unintended consequences with other contracts with the same vendor. Do we anticipate renegotiations by them? Or are they going to come back with higher rates because they have less work with us? So are we concerned about unintended consequences with future contracts with Premier?
Not the consequences that you mentioned related to higher rates. That statement was intended to mean that I know, and our Deputy Administrator Matt Furno is here as well, that the Human Services Committee will be discussing the 3 positions under contract with Premier at the Samaritan at their next meeting. And depending on how the board moves tonight may impact those discussions.
Okay, are you implying that we could bring other positions back in-house?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Martin.
Yes, I just want to say that I'm hopeful that the grading, pay grade areas that are in this resolution are sufficient. That's one of the problems we ran into in the past when we had county employees and switched to JCI, because we did not pay people well enough and didn't have the funds to match the skills that were required. And so I'm hoping that if we run into any kind of a situation like that, we'd come back and visit this so that we're assured that we get qualified personnel in those positions. The other thing I would say is that the line and staff, or whatever you want to call it, has some different terminology in there, and I guess I'm a little concerned about the arrangement of that, and I talked to Jamie a little bit. I hope that some of that will be corrected for the future. And there was one other instance, I had lost it. Sorry.
Call back in if you remember it. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically. Motion passes. Go ahead.
I remembered, and then just so we have it all clarified, have the minutes been corrected from the committee, because that was in conflict with our ordinance?
Yes, they have, and thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Okay, last order of business will be an update on Washington County branding and possible action, which, of course, everybody knows we already.
Remember?
Huh?
One question per supervisor, that's
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, so.
That's it.
Yeah. I've got a little bit that I want to talk to you about this. I sent a letter out in your packet, talking, kind of giving you what kind of happened to bring this back. This is kind of a little bit unusual that we would bring something back. But after the November board meeting, staff began implementing the logo approved by the board. This included meeting with everyone, every department, to survey the transition of the new logo and creating a team to train staff on how to use the new logo. So staff at Epic Creative began to plan an event to announce the meaning behind the logo. As part of implementing the new brand approved by this board, Parks and Trails began to utilize the concept for the trail system. The panel on that project produced a logo that, when I looked at it, alleviated some of the concerns brought up by the no votes of the county board. You know, being in a box. I think Supervisor Merton had something about the landscape, looked confusing. Rather than continue, staff brought it forward, took a look at it, decided let the executive committee take a look at it. Executive committee and a couple other supervisors, Supervisor Mary was there, Supervisor Kist was there, I'm trying to think of who else was there. Took a look at it, and they all liked that better, and it met the concerns that we had brought up. Even though it's kind of irregular, we decided, well, it's a little bit enough different than the original concept. It's very close, but it's a little bit different enough that we wanted to bring it back for the entire board to take a look at it. Everyone liked the looks of that. I like the looks of it much better than the other one. Supervisor Mary, who's in marketing, said it really tripped his trigger. He thought it was much better than the original one that we agreed upon, and it wasn't an overwhelming vote to begin with. So we're bringing it back for you guys to take a look at. Supervisor Mahalik.
Well, seeing that the one that has more of a vertical look reminds me of the Highway S at 175. I have to be voting for that one. I will be voting for the one that's more horizontal. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this? I will entertain a motion to.
Wait.
Ask for a motion first. Supervisor Kelling first. Supervisor Schleif, I got your bunch okay, we got Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So instead of being in a box, we're now in a rectangle? Am I?
Well, as you look at it, it's open on top, so we're not
Oh, where the sun is?
constricted.
Where the
We're
sun
not
is?
constricted
There's
to
a
that
hole,
box.
there's a leak.
The sun is outside the box.
We have a leaky right
It's
there.
open.
It's open for rain.
Yeah, it's
No,
open, we're open for business.
The only
Yes.
thing that I heard talking with, I got phone calls about this logo once the newspaper article came out. And it was described as mountains. I don't know if it's mountains. I see
These are
hills.
the Kettle Hills.
Yeah, this one is
The
that.
hills.
The other one looked
The
like.
Kettle Marine.
Yeah.
I told the people that called that I thought it was Kettle Moraine Hills. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that we're not in the Rockies.
Yeah, we're not mountains.
This is the Kettle Moraine.
It's Kettle, it's a single sloping hill rather than, like you see in the Colorado license plates where you got a couple of peaks on there.
So I don't know where that comes from, but I'm just bringing that to the attention of the board that some people thought this was mountains.
So, real swift.
I just found that call, Mr.
Okay, seeing no more comment, we'll vote on this electronically.
So we're voting for the horizontal one? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Or staying with the other one.
Yes. Oh, yeah, boy, that works. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Okay, next meeting will be Wednesday, February 13th, 2019, 6 o'clock p.m., same place, same time. We are goodbye, church.